So, first of all, it is some Asian Americans. It is a minority. So, please do not fall for this divide and conquer tactic because that is exactly what Edward Bloom and the Supreme Court want you to do.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, guys, I know that we must be getting tired of hearing about affirmative action, but guys, I promise you that this video might be the answer that you've been asking yourself, including myself. So, I have gathered these interesting videos from a TikTok content creator who goes by the name Amy Chen, guys. So, we've had questions like if people don't want legacies to have an advance in education, why is it important to prioritize lower test scores? And other questions, and other people are saying that legacy admissions is a eugenic practice, like the SAATs. So guys, let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. Otherwise, let's get into the video. Let's hear what Amy Chen has to say about this, guys. Let's go.
It's because legacy students are receiving their own untouchable form of affirmative action, which prioritizes their lower test scores based on their parents' performance. Now, I have received comments and I have read articles that indicate that the median test scores for legacy students is higher than the median test score of their non-legacy counterparts. And the implication is that those legacy students would have been admitted anyways. But it turns out that it depends on the school and it depends on the school's legacy admissions policy, because not all schools weight legacy in the same way. But to give legacies the greatest benefit of the doubt, let's assume that it is true across the board that legacy students have a median test score that's higher than their non-legacy counterparts. What that means is the bottom quartile of legacy students who are admitted receive test scores that are lower than the median for their non-legacy counterparts. And for a school like Harvard, where 40% of the incoming class in question was legacy, it's very significant that 10% of the entire incoming class was legacy students who were less qualified than their non-legacy counterparts. That's about 120 seats. Now, with respect to the argument that legacy students who have better GPA and receive test scores would have been admitted anyways, that's just proof that they don't need special consideration, and they shouldn't. If you are the child of parents who went to elite universities, and you are the child of parents who are able to make donations to those universities, you don't need special consideration because you've had every opportunity to earn a high GPA and to earn high test scores. You had parents who knew how to guide your education and who had the resources to put into guiding your education. So again, their higher median test score is actually just more proof that they don't need special accommodations. So the reason why I haven't touched upon the actual facts of the case is because I don't know them. Since I have a law degree, I prefer to read the legal decisions myself so that I can know exactly what the court looked at and what their reasoning was. So until I've had an opportunity to do that, I avoid reading, seeing, or watching any news articles about it because I don't want my opinion being filtered through media bias. But the opinion is over 200 pages long, so it's going to take me a while. But you raise a point that was also relevant in the 2003 Supreme Court case involving the University of Michigan and affirmative action. Something I would like people to consider is that certain institutions choose to discriminate against Asian Americans is a separate issue from implementing affirmative action for Black and Indigenous students. Now, I'm sure there are people who are having a hard time wrapping their head around that idea because we've been brainwashed to believe that the two issues are necessarily connected. We are told that Asian Americans are overrepresented in higher education, so in order to open up seats to implement affirmative action for Black and Indigenous students, we must remove seats from Asian Americans. So what was going on in 2003 is that certain institutions were using a point system where certain applicants automatically had a half point added on the basis of race. If you were white, it was a 0, nothing added, nothing taken away. And if you were Asian American, a quarter point was removed. And this was found to be racially discriminatory against Asian Americans and unconstitutional. But the nothing added or taken away for white students was not found to be racially discriminatory. Edward Bloom has used white plaintiffs to attack affirmative action 20 times, and the reason why he fails is because courts repeatedly find that affirmative action is not unconstitutionally discriminatory against white people. He succeeded this time because he used Asian Americans, and I believe that the policies in question were found to unconstitutionally discriminate against Asian Americans. So then the court's solution was, if we can't discriminate against Asian Americans, then throw the baby out with the bathwater, affirmative action has to be banned. I think a simple solution is stop discriminating against Asian Americans. Treat Asian American students the same way that you treat white students. I'm sure some people are wondering, if we treat Asian students the same way that we treat white students, then where do the seats come from to implement affirmative action? And that exposes the real problem. White-run institutions chose to discriminate against Asian students in order to implement affirmative action because they didn't want the seats coming from legacy students or from white students. But what the bulk of Edward Bloom's cases should tell us is that affirmative action can be implemented without causing unconstitutional negative discrimination. And you all know that I feel very strongly that where those seats should come from is legacy.
I know, she's good, yeah. Okay, guys, hoping that the first part of this video has answered most of your questions, guys, because there are so many unanswered questions concerning the striking down of affirmative action, guys, and we have a few answers, but it's better than nothing, right? So, guys, it's a known fact that palm color people have always tried to weaponize Asian Americans against Black Americans when both sides are fighting for the same thing respectively. So this is the reason why this seems like the striking down of affirmative action is a win for the Asian people. So you know what they say about if you want to learn how to steal, ask a thief. If you want to know how to bake, ask a baker. So let's just hear what Amy Chen had to say about this, guys.
So first of all, it is some Asian Americans. It is a minority. So please do not fall for this divide and conquer tactic, because that is exactly what Edward Bloom and the Supreme Court want you to do. Edward Bloom wanted Asian Americans to blame Black people for their not getting into college, and Edward Bloom and the Supreme Court want Black people to blame Asian Americans for affirmative action being banned. But 70% of Asian Americans support affirmative action. And if you break it down by ethnicity, among Japanese Americans, I think that the approval is as high as 86%. I think that Chinese Americans have the lowest approval rating, and even then it is 56%. There is no Asian ethnicity where a majority disapprove of affirmative action. And in the most recent case, there were more Asian Americans involved in the lawsuit in supporting Harvard and in filing amicus briefs in support of affirmative action than there were Asian American plaintiffs who sued Harvard. Now, to answer your question, the reason why some Asian Americans think that this decision is a win for them is because they fell for divide and conquer tactics, and they aligned with whiteness, and they blamed Black people for their not getting into college. Something I'll touch upon, as long as we do understand that a lot of Asian Americans like myself are aware of this and it doesn't change our support of affirmative action. Research has indicated that if college admissions was based purely on GPA and standardized test score, then enrollment among Asian Americans would increase slightly, but we're talking about tenths of a percent. And it's also indicated that the 12% or so of Asian Americans currently enrolled in college who did benefit from affirmative action under such a system would likely lose their seats, and they tend to be Asian Americans who come from lower income families. On a purely personal note, when I was applying to the University of Michigan in the 1990s, it was generally thought that being Asian American is a disadvantage in college admissions. And what my dad told me is that since I am a first-generation born Asian American, I have a lot of privilege. I was born and raised in a country that was stolen from Native Americans, that was built off the free labor of enslaved Black people. Furthermore, I'm not the descendant of a railroad Chinese. I am not the descendant of a Japanese American who was interned during World War II. And at that time, we thought that I was not the descendant of anybody who was negatively impacted by the Chinese Exclusion Act. It turns out that wasn't true. But what my dad said was, if the University of Michigan is going to remove a quarter point from your application because you're Asian American, and that is necessary in order to redress historical harm done to Black people and Native Americans, then so be it. And what the stereotypical Asian hard work ethic meant in my household is you just need to work that much harder to make up for that quarter point. And what you don't do is you do not blame the people who have historically been harmed. What you do is you work hard to change the system. So I am disappointed in my fellow Asian Americans who don't seem to understand that. Again, it's not that affirmative action requires negative discrimination against anybody. It's that institutions chose to discriminate against Asian Americans while implementing affirmative action. The idea that to open up seats for some people, we have to remove seats from others is the myth of scarcity. If institutes of higher education have been able to expand to accommodate women and are able to expand to accommodate population growth, they can darn well expand to accommodate equitable racial representation. And that courts have repeatedly held that affirmative action does not discriminate against white people shows that affirmative action can be implemented in a way that does not discriminate against Asian Americans. The other thing about this argument is because Asian Americans are not a monolith, it depends. Asian Americans have benefited from race-conscious affirmative action, and the Asian Americans who benefit tend to be the most marginalized. So certain Southeast Asian ethnicities, refugees, and lower income Asian Americans. As I mentioned before, research has indicated that if colleges and universities were to assess applicants based purely on GPA and standardized test score, Asian Americans might experience a slight increase in enrollment. But just as it's important to disaggregate the data when we are talking about the model minority myth, it's important to disaggregate the data here. Although Asian Americans generally might experience an increase in enrollment under such a system, the Asian Americans who have benefited from affirmative action, who tend to be lower income Asian Americans, would probably lose their seats. So if you're an Asian American who fits the model referred to in the model minority myth, you might benefit from affirmative action being banned. But if you are an Asian American who has traditionally been marginalized by the model minority myth, you would be harmed.
Okay, guys, so I'll try my level best to share this until we get past this. But otherwise, that's what I had for you guys in today's video. Please remember to like, subscribe if you have not subscribed already, and turn on your notification bell so that every time I upload such videos, guys, you'll be notified. I will definitely see you in my next video. Peace.